By the time we realized the black holes weren't destroying matter, we had already sent probe 17 into the event horizon, and it never stopped transmitting. That should have been impossible. Every model, every simulation, every law we understood said nothing escapes. But the signal kept coming. Not from inside exactly, more like it was being routed through dimensions we didn't have mathematics for yet. The data wasn't garbled or stretched by gravity. It was clean. Structured. And it was showing us something that made 3 members of the analysis team resign without explanation. I was part of the second wave, brought in after the initial researchers started showing signs of what the medical staff called cognitive dissonance events. That's what they labeled it when Dr. Reese walked into the director's office and said the universe was being carefully disassembled and rebuilt and we were the only ones who could see the seams. They sedated her. Put her on leave. But they kept her data because her data was perfect. The probes were supposed to measure Hawking radiation, test the information paradox, standard high-energy physics. What they found instead were structures. Geometric patterns in the accretion disk that repeated across every black hole we observed, regardless of size or age or galactic location. Not natural patterns. The kind of mathematical precision you see in circuit boards. In engines. When we ran the resonance analysis, the patterns responded. Not like an echo. Like recognition. Commander Voss kept saying it was a fluke, that we were seeing what we wanted to see, but his hands shook when he initialized the next scan sequence. We watched the data populate in real time. Temperature gradients that defied thermodynamics. Energy flows that reversed entropy locally. And deep in the rotational data, a rhythm. Intentional. Cyclical. Something was feeding energy back into the universe. The Astrophysics Council called an emergency session. Classified. They filled a room with people who'd spent their lives studying stellar death and cosmic decay, and they showed us what Probe 17 had really seen in its final approach. Not the chaos of a singularity. Not the destruction of physics. A mechanism. Vast and intricate, built from warped spacetime itself, operating on scales that made our sun look like a dust mote. The black hole wasn't a gravitational collapse. It was a machine. And it was old. Older than our galaxy. Older than the local group. The decay signatures in the exotic matter framework suggested construction timelines that predated the cosmic microwave background. Whoever built these things did it when the universe was still young enough to be shaped. Dr. Kovac was the first to say what we were all thinking. If these were built, they were built for a purpose. And if that purpose involved reversing entropy, collecting and redistributing energy on cosmic scales, then we weren't looking at remnants of some ancient civilization. We were looking at an infrastructure project. A maintenance system. They were trying to stop the heat death. The implications crushed us before we even fully understood them. Every black hole. Billions of them scattered across the observable universe and beyond. Not natural endpoints of stellar evolution but deliberately placed engines, harvesting the one-way flow of energy and matter into something else. Recycling spacetime itself. We started finding the support systems next. Neutron stars that pulsed in synchronized patterns across galactic distances. Quasar jets that aligned too precisely to be coincidental. Dark matter distributions that looked less like halos and more like conduits. The entire universe had been modified, threaded with technology so advanced we'd mistaken it for the fundamental fabric of reality. But here's what made me stop sleeping. If this system was built to prevent heat death, that meant whoever built it knew heat death was coming. Calculated it. Feared it enough to engineer a solution on a universal scale. And if they went to that much trouble, it meant they failed the first time. This wasn't the first universe. Probe 23 gave us the archaeology. When we sent it into Sagittarius A*, the supermassive black hole at our galaxy's center, it transmitted for 6 hours before the signal changed. The data became instructions. Blueprints. Not for the mechanism itself but for how to read what was already there. We started understanding the energy signatures. The matter conversion ratios. The temporal recycling loops. The black holes were feeding processed material and energy into quantum foam substrates, redistributing it across spacetime through what the equations described as causal editing zones. They weren't just preventing heat death. They were rewinding it selectively. Keeping the universe's metabolic rate stable by carefully pruning and reconstituting matter in regions where entropy had exceeded sustainable thresholds. We were living inside a maintained system. A cosmic terrarium where the heat was being carefully recycled so the garden wouldn't freeze. Voss wanted to shut down the research. Classify everything beyond black and never speak about it again. But you can't unlearn something like this. You can't pretend the universe isn't an artifact. That every star, every planet, everything you've ever known exists because something impossibly old decided it was worth the energy cost to keep the lights on. The real horror came when we decoded the maintenance logs. They were embedded in the gravitational wave patterns, written in spacetime fluctuations we'd been detecting for decades without understanding their meaning. The black hole network wasn't just running. It was reporting. Status updates. Efficiency ratings. Error corrections. All formatted in a language that predated matter itself, transmitted to receivers we couldn't locate because they existed in dimensional frameworks our instruments couldn't access. Someone was still checking on the system. And 4 months ago, the reports changed. Probe 17 caught it first. A new data structure appended to the standard maintenance pulse. We spent weeks translating it. When we finally understood, Dr. Kovac locked herself in the observation room and wouldn't come out. The message was a question. It wasn't asking us for information. It was asking the system itself whether we had reached sufficient technological development to be informed. To be integrated. The architects had built in a protocol. A threshold. When a civilization advanced enough to detect and understand the black hole network, that civilization was flagged for contact. We had been noticed. The probe started receiving new instructions 3 weeks ago. Not from us. The black holes were activating secondary functions, redirecting energy flows in patterns that looked almost like preparation. Massive infrastructure elements we'd mistaken for natural cosmic web formations began showing power signatures. Dormant for billions of years. Waking up now. Voss authorized one last probe. Probe 41. We sent it into the closest stellar mass black hole with every sensor package we could fit, every quantum decoder, every translation matrix we'd developed. The transmission lasted 14 seconds. It showed us the underneath. The black holes weren't separate machines. They were access points. The actual mechanism existed in a folded dimension, a constructed space woven through our universe like veins through tissue. And in that space, the energy being harvested wasn't just recycled. It was sorted. Filtered. Some of it returned to our universe. Some of it was diverted elsewhere. To other universes. The heat death wasn't being prevented. It was being postponed. Managed. The system was buying time, but time for what? The energy equations showed a net loss. Slow. Calculable. Inevitable. Even with every black hole operating at full efficiency, entropy still won. Just later. This wasn't a permanent solution. It was a delay mechanism. And we just announced ourselves to the architects responsible for deciding which universes got to keep running and which ones got shut down to conserve energy. I'm writing this from the observation deck of the research station. Below me, Earth looks perfect. Unaware. Going about its routines inside a cosmos that's been on life support for longer than life existed. In 3 days, we're supposed to present our findings to the Global Science Council. Tell them what we found. What it means. But I keep thinking about Probe 41's last transmission. That folded dimension beneath reality. The sorting mechanism. And the one detail Voss classified immediately, the one he won't let anyone discuss. Some of the energy being harvested wasn't just matter and radiation. The quantum signatures matched neurological patterns. Information structures complex enough to be thoughts. Memories. Consciousness. The universe wasn't just being recycled. We were. Every black hole wasn't just a cosmic recycling station. It was also a collection point. And whatever was doing the collecting had been refining its process for billions of years, getting better at extracting, preserving, and redirecting the one thing in the universe that might actually be worth saving when the energy budget runs out. I don't know if they'll decide we're efficient enough to keep running. I don't know if this version of reality is one they'll choose to sustain or one they'll let go dark to power something else. But I know now why Dr. Reese broke down. Why she kept saying we were the only ones who could see the seams. Because once you see them, you can't stop noticing. The small synchronicities. The patterns. The way certain thoughts feel like they've been had before in arrangements you almost recognize. The way the stars sometimes pulse in rhythms that match your heartbeat when you're not paying attention.